name is Shilpa and welcome back to the channel. In this video, I am going to discuss about neurodegenerative diseases. Medical advancements today have increased the average lifespan of human. So the good news is we can live longer. So there are more number of people in their 80s and 90s these days. But then the concern is this population, which is about the age of their 80s or 90s, is also susceptible to the aging diseases like neurodegenerative diseases. I have with me Simone, my daughter today. Hi Simone. And she's going to help us understand a few technical terms of these diseases. So Simone, can you introduce yourself first?
Sure. So I'm currently a junior at the University of Pittsburgh and I'm majoring in neuroscience. I'm also minoring in applied fitness, so I'm super interested about all these like nutrition and fitness based questions as well. Side note, I'm actually pursuing research and one of the areas I'm very interested in is neurodegenerative diseases.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, so actually I asked you guys to come up with your questions so that we can answer those queries which are in your mind about these diseases, and I was overwhelmed with the response. So first of all, thank you so much for sending in your questions, and without further ado, let's get started. So the first question we have here is, what are the neurodegenerative diseases?
So essentially, neurodegenerative disorders or diseases occur when nerve cells in your brain or the rest of your body they lose function and they ultimately die. This is especially different than suppose if you get like a cut or if you like get a burn or something like that, or just injure your skin or even your honestly like your liver, right? Like you know that they have like partial liver transplants and your liver grows back. But this just doesn't happen in the brain. We don't know why. It's still unknown why nerves can't regenerate essentially. So once you lose your nerve cell, it's most of the times it's usually just gone, and this is why these are such delicate things that we have to deal with. So yeah, the biggest risk factor for this disorder is age. Right? So as we age, the risk increases dramatically.
Okay, and yeah, I mean the next question that has come, I think, is what are the most common neurodegenerative diseases? Because I think we know a couple of names which are common,
popular ones.
Probably there are many, so if you can just tell us the most common ones which are seen.
I'm sure everyone knows Alzheimer's disease. That is the most common one in the sense that it has affected the most people.
Right.
Then comes Parkinson's disorder, and yeah, that is also a pretty common one in the public. The lesser known but still very the ones that affect a lot of people would be Huntington's disorder or Huntington's chorea, if you must have heard either of those names.
Right.
Then there's ALS, and the last one I can think of would be like motor neuron disorder or disease, motor neuron disease, MND.
Yeah, so the next one, which is, I think a couple of people have asked this one, is are these hereditary or genetic?
Okay, so yes and no. So essentially, there are two kinds of genes, really, right? So you can have genes that, if you have that, they encode for proteins which directly give you a disease. And those are called deterministic. And the other kind is are those that just increase your risk at getting a disease. So it's not that if you have it, you're like say gonna get Alzheimer's for sure or not.
Okay.
You get that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so right, so we have these two like genes, but the unfortunate thing I would say is that we don't really know what causes, especially Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So there are theories. Some people say that it's genetic or it's based on genes. Some people think that it's completely not, like it's just your environmental factors. I'm kind of one of those people. But yeah, so it's a lot of like just theories out there, so I don't want to say anything is like set in stone. But I do know that Huntington's disorder, the one common one, that is a straight away like genetic disorder. So if you have this extra like chromosome, it's called trisomy 21. So if you have that, it's pretty much like fated that you will develop this disease. So that's that's the only one I would say like yes. Then there's also the question about is it passed on from like generations, and this also is like a yes and no kind of a situation, unfortunately, because genes really don't work that way. It is that you can pass on some genes to your offsprings, but just the way the whole process works, it's not that if your mom has it, you're definitely gonna get it. It can be that your dad doesn't have it, so you might not have it, right? Like it's a mix. So you have to keep that in mind. I don't think that, I know that there's this 0.1% of Alzheimer's that's called early onset familial Alzheimer's disease. That's a mouthful. But that is essentially genetically passed. But again, like, there's another but, because this is all quantitative.
Right.
If that makes sense, right? So it's like if more of your family members have it, then the risk increases. But it's not like I can just like look at a gene in your body and be like, oh, you got this from like your aunt, you know? Like it's just not that way. Personally, I don't think that everyone should get genetically tested either, because I think that will also give you a bit more anxiety about like what you're made of or whatever, you know? Like some things are super dormant and you don't have to worry about it, and you shouldn't worry about it. But yeah, so sorry for the long answer, but it's just a lot of unknowns really, you know? Like except for Huntington's, I really haven't like found out anything that's like super like set in stone that this happens because of this gene 100% for everyone. Also, just keep in mind that these kind of degenerative disorders, and in general like stuff to do with the brain, a lot of it is a mystery, a lot of it is just entangled, and a lot of it is a spectrum. So there are a spectrum of genes that affect this disease. There are a spectrum of symptoms that you might have. Like some people might have one symptom and the other person has the same disease, but they don't have that symptom at all. A lot of diseases are like that. I think that's kind of where you can see like humans, you know, like how they're so varied in everything that we are. But
yeah, that is yes and no. So of course, I mean, Huntington, as she rightly said, if you have it in your family and if you are worried about it, probably it's a good idea to get tested after I think 18.
I would say that,
yeah. So it's a good idea to get it tested. But apart from that, unless there are specific symptoms which are seen, probably let's not go there. Let's put it that way.
But just make sure that, I mean, whenever you have symptoms of any sort, just please go to your healthcare physician. I'm sure he knows way more than this.
Of course. Now the next question which comes here is, age. Age is definitely, as you said, the biggest factor. But this viewer is asking are there other factors than age which might contribute?
Right. So one main thing about your body, like as a human, as honestly as any organism really, including like a small like bacterial cell or yeast cell, like really everyone, it's homeostasis. You need to have that like maintain that balance and that set point, and the moment that goes wrong, there's gonna be a disease. And there are systems in your body that can like put it back to like the set point, and you know, just bring you back to normal or take you back on track. But when those fail, that's essentially what we would term as getting a disease, right? Or getting an illness. So particularly in terms of neurodegenerative disorders, the main player is called oxidative stress.
Okay.
So that sounds super intellectual. It's really not.
Can you break it down, please?
It's really not. You know the molecule oxygen, right? So bit of chemistry over here. So molecules, they can form ions, right, when they're charged, and they are charged. So oxygen, when it forms an ion with whatever process that's formed, usually on metabolic processes, you do have wastes, right? Like if you're burning a candle, for example, you find ash, right, with the thread. So things like that causes oxidative molecules to be released, and they are super reactive. So they find a nitrogen in your cell, they're gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna react with you, or they're gonna find metals that are naturally found in your body. They will react with that, and those become very toxic. There are things that are helpful. Like, it's not that every waste material is just every single cell that's going under metabolism of some sort is going to give you stress. It's not that way. There is definitely a threshold, so you can tolerate some sort of toxicity, and once it goes beyond that, that's when you're supposed to get worried, and your body does get worried. It starts shutting down things, essentially. So that's kind of a short thing on oxidative stress. I would say that oxidative stress is the main cause. Then comes endocrine conditions. It can be some sort of infection or inflammation. It can be poor nutrition. It can be you just not exercising, so do exercise. It can also be some more psychological conditions like depression.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I mean, that's kind of a vicious cycle, because it's one causes the other, but that is research has shown that to be true, so we can hold that. And one of the next, I would say the main actual causes that you can see from the outside is head trauma or stroke. So I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? That's intuitive, that if you literally hit an organ, that something's gonna happen. Another thing that is more, I wouldn't say it's scientific, rather it's more a demographic information that I could give you, is that ethnicity and cultures do affect this. But like we were discussing the other day, ethnicity and culture can also play a role in your nutrition or your lifestyle, right? So it could just be because of that, but a demographic point of view, yeah, ethnicity can be a factor and influence this.
Yeah, right. So apart from that, are there any vices, which bad habits probably, that we have picked up in our life? Yeah.
You know, I always say that humans just make stuff to kill themselves, and that's 100% true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can you guess them? Just think about any bad habit that people have.
I think probably smoking.
Yes, smoking is one of the biggest players in causing degenerative disorders. On the contrary, I've heard that coffee might help. But I mean, don't
But in
quote me on
moderation,
that.
probably.
But yeah, it's probably in moderation.
In moderation.
I've never heard that. I haven't actually gone and studied with papers about this, but have heard that.
There are some studies, if I'm not wrong, which say that wine, the red wine, is actually an antioxidant.
Right.
But of course in moderation again.
Yeah.
That is a
I mean,
very
you can't
important-
get drunk
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah, not a bottle of wine, just a small.
Port wine, those small glasses.
Yeah.
They do help.
But then the other alcohol, which is hard
hard
drinks, I would say, is not probably good. Let's move on to the next question. That is, this is very important. What are the early symptoms? Because
Okay.
I think people get confused with the symptoms, and sometimes people ignore the symptoms. So both ways, we need to know what are the main concerns or main symptoms that you're supposed to look for.
Right. So before, to preface all of this, I would say that any symptom or any change that you have in your body, it could be mental, it could be physical, really anything that lasts over 2 weeks, I would say that's a red flag. You should probably just get that checked.
Yeah.
It could be nothing. It could just be maybe you start drinking coffee a bit extra because you're stressed at work, and that's fine. That's natural, but it's good to know that that's just the reason of that, right? So that's just one of the things. And secondly, when dealing with these kind of disorders, obviously you need to get more cautious as you enter, say, your late 40s, and especially so if you have this history of, or like you have like a family history of getting these kind of disorders. So okay, let's just get into the 5 disorders that I mentioned before, and we can go.
So let's talk first about probably Alzheimer's disease.
Right. So Alzheimer's is one of those like hallmark disorders, I would say. The first thing right off the bat is loss of memory. Right. So I mean, it was considered under dementia.
Right.
And not to like stray too away from the subject, but most neurodegenerative disorders were just accepted back in the day when like science was not that big of a thing.
Yeah.
They were just kind of accepted as like, oh, so like this is, I mean, she lost her memory, she has aged, but now we're lucky we have like medicines for this. But yeah, so you can have loss of memory. Usually it would be short-term memory, so it could be like maybe you forget like where you leave your keys like every single day. But I mean, it's again, like it's not something that happens once and you're like, oh my god, no, I have Alzheimer's. Like that's not how it works for sure. But yeah, so loss of memory. There's a super weird one that I found that is that you lose your orientation in space. So I know that there's a word called like proprioception to like tell where your limbs are in space, and it could be that. It could also be like just wandering, where you like don't know where you are. Of course, if you have some sort of like huge shift in personalities, that's honestly a symptom for anything just going on in your brain. Like it could be a tumor, it could be an aneurysm, it could be really like random things. So,
or it can be just basic depression. So it can
I mean, it could be psychological disorder. I'm not trying to scare you. So, but yeah.
But
so
it is something that you need to get checked from the right doctor.
And then so a lot of Alzheimer's patients can also have difficulty in language. At the end of it, mainly memory, I would say.
And cognitive, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. Yeah.
Coming to the next one, which is I think Parkinson's.
Yeah, right. So Parkinson's is an especially, again, it's one of the hallmark ones, I would say. This one has to do with movement, right? So Parkinsonian symptoms would be like bradykinesia. Brady means slow, kinesia means movement.
Okay.
So slow movement, like that's essentially what it is. So you wouldn't like, okay, so if I want to like raise my hand right now, like I'm doing it like pretty swiftly, right? But then a Parkinson's patient would actually need to concentrate twice as hard, thrice as hard, just like lift it up, and then they would tremor. So you would also have tremors that are seen in Parkinson's patients that are just like resting tremors. So you would just be resting and you would still have tremors in your body. Those are two of like the main ones I could think of. There is rigidity, so your body just gets like stiff. Posture instability, so that would be just like, oh, I can't like stand straight, right? Or like you just keep like, I mean, it's different to have bad posture, like I'm not talking about that. It's different to not be able to like sit straight at all, right? So there's that, and Parkinson's is a progressive disorder, and so is Alzheimer's, really, I forgot to say that. But so these disorders do worsen as you get them.
So in Parkinson's, basically, I think the muscular things get affected.
Yeah, it's
what kind of function is it? Motor or is it muscular? What exactly gets affected?
Yeah, I mean, motor and muscular kind of like go hand in hand, right? So it is like that is essentially what happens. So it is like movement related completely, as opposed to Alzheimer's that was memory related.
Right. So the next one I think that you mentioned was ALS.
So ALS is actually characterized with muscle twitching, and it can be like the stiff muscle or stiffness in your muscles. It began with weakness. Sorry, and it would be like weakness in your arms or legs, but it's obviously prolonged again, right? And it can also go to like swallowing. But also behavioral issues, again, they could arise, so you should always be on the lookout for that.
Right. And the next one is Huntington's. Yeah.
Right. So our genetic disorder that we have, the most subtle changes in moods and behaviors, really. They do arise in Huntington's. It would be somewhat a mood or, like mental ability, I guess, kind of an issue. You might also find sort of like subtle issues in like how you grasp things.
Okay.
I would say. And right, so those are like one of the first symptoms. That's what would come the first. And then you would have an unsteady gait. So you would maybe be like limping on one leg or just something related to how you walk, really. And then as it kind of, again, like this is something as well as it gets worse as you progress. You would also have kind of like jerks in your body movements, or you would have like uncoordinated movements, maybe like half your body would move more differently than the other or something of that sort. And then lastly, mental abilities can, as I said, like they do progress towards dementia as well. So this is also one of those dementia umbrella term illnesses.
Right. And the last one was
motor neuron disorder, right? So this is actually similar-ish to Huntington's and ALS in the sense that it is your like arms and legs that gets weakness, and one thing that would stand out from these is slurred speech.
Oh, okay.
So you would kind of like lose motor control over your tongue, essentially. That would make you talk slurred, in a slurred way. You also do have like difficulty in swallowing if this happens, and you would have a weak grip. So what that means is that if I was to pick up this cup, then I would really struggle to keep it in my hand.
Okay.
Right? So it really would be super difficult to like grip on things, especially like tinier things like say a pencil or something, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, those are one of it. And then mood is also one of the main things in this, and that would kind of be on like you would not be able to make yourself stop crying, or you would not be able to make yourself stop laughing. So these kind of like erratic and extreme behaviors would come under MOD.
Oh, okay. So yeah, as she said initially that there are a variety of symptoms, and again the symptoms might become less or more, but definitely they sustain for a longer time. So don't get scared, because yeah, it happens to me also that where I kept my keys I don't remember.
Yeah.
So no, that's not a big thing. But of course, if you have a family history and if this is happening for more than 2 to 3 weeks, then it's better to get it checked from the doctors. That's what we would say.
Yeah.
The next question is, do patients with these diseases pose a threat to others?
I wouldn't say, I mean, like, no, not exactly. They wouldn't pose a threat to you. But these patients do require a lot of care, because I mean, just can you imagine not being able to use your limbs properly and function well in that kind of a way? So, I mean, it's not something that's contagious. It's not something that if I'm sitting like a foot away from you that I can like pass on at all. It's not one of those kind of disorders. But definitely, you need a lot of care and help for having these patients live a healthy lifestyle as much as they can. And as the disease progresses, you do need extra help just getting by to do a few simple, quote unquote, simple things. So yeah, but no, they're not contagious, or they wouldn't like really pose a threat in any way.
So the next one I think is very important, that I mean we have been telling viewers that go to doctor, but if you can just tell us that how these diseases can be detected.
Right, so detection of diseases actually, it could be a blood test, it could be an fMRI, that's a functional MRI, or it could just be like a CT scan. It kind of just like depends, honestly. Alzheimer's brains look very different than regular brains. You could definitely see that in an fMRI. You could also just, I mean, along with the symptoms, obviously, because no one's gonna just give you an MRI. But essentially, what the doctors would do is have this kind of a psychological testing with you first, and then they would proceed to getting like evidence or almost like reconfirming that their diagnosis is right about other of these disorders. And most of these disorders actually have a biomarker. So a biomarker is just kind of like this substance, or I would say a protein, that kind of just like floats around in your blood. So a blood draw could pretty much tell you if you have...
So a regular blood draw, you mean?
Right. So that's usually what they would go for, I would think. But the first thing that you would have to do is like get a psychological analysis. In some cases it's not psychological, in some cases like Parkinson's you usually just have like motor deficits.
Yeah.
So that would be a different ballgame. But yeah, so they would just kind of like check on that kind of diagnosis and then confirm it using some sort of imaging technique.
Right.
Alright, so now that I have answered your neuroscientific questions, I would like to ask you their questions on nutrition and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Sweet. So the first question is, what can we do to alter our nutrition to prevent these disorders, or can we?
Okay, so can we prevent these diseases is again a yes and no kind of an answer. And see, age is something that you can't really avoid. But
Right.
there are some things in our hand probably which we can do, and we can take care and modify the lifestyle a little bit so that we can delay these diseases a bit, if not prevent or avoid completely. So the first and the most important factor that, as you rightly said, was the oxidative stress. So to avoid oxidative stress, probably we can have more antioxidant rich diet. Now this diet should be starting from early on, not like when you become 80 and then you start taking antioxidant left, right, center. No, it should be as early as possible. Start including antioxidants in your diet. Start including the natural antioxidants in your diet first. Instead of just popping a pill, it's better to go for natural ones. So the first one that comes in my mind is, I think your favorite, is this berries. So blueberries mainly and strawberries. So the research has shown a great effect of blueberry and strawberry extracts on rodents, particularly they have done research there, to improve the cognitive functions and the memory functions. They are of course known great antioxidants also. So include berries, they are great snacks. You can have few berries whenever you feel hungry or you want to snack something. They are the best snacks probably. Go for organic ones as much as possible. So berries is one. The next one is actually a spice. That is turmeric. So I think Asians know a lot about this spice because we use it a lot in our cooking. Turmeric has curcuminoids, which are anti-inflammatory and antioxidants. So these again help in all the effects of aging, but particularly the neurodegenerative diseases because of reducing the oxidative stress in our body.
Starbucks too has that golden latte, which is pretty much turmeric.
Yeah, I mean, my mother used to give me the milk with turmeric.
Yeah, I think Haldi Doodh is
yeah.
like a staple for me. I mean, honestly, I don't know what it has. I mean, it's probably all these good things, but if I'm feeling sick.
Yeah, and it's easy. It's
best.
easy to incorporate turmeric. You can have a teaspoon also each day, and that's enough. You don't have
Or
to.
you can put it in your food. Like my friend used to put it in pasta.
Okay.
And I'm like, don't you taste like the pasta? And she's like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, a slight taste probably, but that can be.
I think
still
yeah. Like I
manageable.
mean, if you're not a fan of turmeric taste, which I know a lot of people aren't, you could just add it with something that's super fragrant or
yeah,
super
that
tasty.
actually that brings me to a very great recipe as an antioxidant. That in a teaspoon or tablespoon, add a little bit of turmeric, add a little bit of pepper powder, and then add coconut oil. Again, all three things are great antioxidants. So just mix them, drink it with hot water or something on top, and that's a great recipe for your everyday antioxidant short, let's put it that way. Also fish like salmon, which has PUFA, if you can explain PUFA.
PUFA is just polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Yeah.
So that's a mouthful. It's just a biomolecule that's found in foods.
Yeah. So these are again, as I said, coconut oil again has same PUFA, and these are also seen as great intervention through your food to improve the cognitive as well as neural communication, what you call. Like as you said, few diseases, they are due to lack of proper communication between the neurons. So there, these can be really helpful. And the next one actually is no-brainer because it looks like brain, that is the walnut. So walnut also looks like a brain. So as a child, I remember my mother used to tell me that eat a walnut, it looks like brain, you'll improve the memory. Yeah, that is actually true.
Nature does that very often. There's so many fruits and vegetables just...
Yeah, so walnuts improve your learning abilities, cognitive abilities as well. And they are again anti-inflammatory and antioxidant in nature. So include walnuts in your diet. That is a very good thing. And the last tip for the nutrition is not the food, but the container that you put your food in, which many times I have seen is plastic. So avoid the use of plastic, because again, plastic is known to increase the oxidative stress. That's kind of a pollutant. It's a factor that can cause oxidative stress through environment in our body. So try to avoid all types of plastic, replace it with glass or steel containers. That is very important.
Or copper.
Oh yeah, copper.
Copper is great.
Yeah.
Sorry, side note again. They actually found nanoplastic particles in human skin. Like literally in your cells, like they found like these really tiny like plastic particles. Which kind of just like tells you about, I mean, it's a super popular thing, really. Like, I see people having like those plastic bottles like all the time.
Yeah.
People keep it in their cars, which is just like, please
Even
don't
bad.
do that. Please don't do that. Like,
include more antioxidants in your diet and eat healthy, eat organic as much as you can. Because again, the pesticides is also known to cause oxidative stress. So avoid as much as food which is not organic, having a lot of pesticides in it. So yeah, these are the...
Yeah. I would also, I mean, yes, organic is great, but be smart with it. You know, like we're not trying to make you spend this all this money on these kind of things. There are definitely a lot of vegetables that have a harder outside, and they're fine. Like you can buy them, like an avocado. Like you don't need an organic one that covers pretty thick. But yeah, I mean, if you do live in a place where you can grow your own things, that's the best way. Like, I know I said this when I was talking, but can exercise actually prevent AD?
So I also had to do a little bit of research on this because I'm a big fan of exercise in general, but I really wanted to know if they affect neurodegenerative diseases, in particular Alzheimer's. And there were patients with Alzheimer's which were presented with long-term exercise routine, and it was found that there was improved blood flow and increased hippocampal volume and improved neurogenesis. Now, a little bit of, again, technological terms. So let's go to Simon to ask, what is hippocampal volume?
So, essentially, hippocampus is a part or region, I would say, in your brain that is associated with memory.
Okay.
So hippocampus is where your like short-term memory is at.
Right.
Right. So you learn usually through that, and so what happens with Alzheimer's? I mean, essentially, not to make this gory or something, but if you imagine a regular person's brain to be this big, an Alzheimer's patient's brain is going to be like this big.
Oh.
So it really just shrinks. You lose neurons, like they literally die off, and it's cleared out by your system. So you get like holes and crevices in your brains, which really aren't there if you're a healthy person. And the same thing, I mean, you can just imagine the whole brain just shrinks, right?
Yeah.
So your hippocampus is going to shrink. So when she said that increased hippocampal volume, it just kind of means that there's more in the hippocampus than there was.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's
The next thing that you said, improved neurogenesis.
Yes.
So
yes.
what is neurogenesis? Let's break this down. So neuro is just anything to do with your nerves or your brain, right? And genesis is just forming something new, like formation, really. So put that together, you have formation of new neurons.
Yeah.
So it again kind of, like I would say the increased hippocampal volume is a consequence of neurogenesis.
Right.
And that's super hard to achieve. I mean, if you can like get it to neurogenesis, then that's like golden.
So yeah, exercise is great. Not just that, if you are if you are at a risk of Alzheimer's because of your family history, let's say, higher physical activity in your day-to-day life can also mitigate the risk of getting AD, or it can be delayed to a certain extent. So exercise is great. Coming to which exercise, that is still not 100% clear what kind of exercise, but any physical activity is great. Yoga is another line of study that is done on yoga, whether yoga is good for any mental as well as physical disorders, and particularly the brain related disorders. Yeah, there are some small studies which suggest that yoga done with the breathing exercises, which we call pranayama, has proven to be beneficial, but the studies are very small. However, yoga is something that I think we all enjoy. So
yeah, but I mean, I think that makes sense though, right? Because I mean, I feel super calm after yoga.
Yeah.
I think most people do it. I mean, even in university, like most people just love yoga because it's like, oh, I have a stressful week coming up, so I'm gonna do yoga, or you know. So I think if you're less stressed, I guess your body would be under less stress, and then you would just be a healthier mind, I would say.
True. Yeah, true. So exercise regularly, of course, it will benefit if avoiding or at least delaying AD.
Okay, so this is super interesting one. Is there a link between sleep disorders or like irregular sleeping patterns and Alzheimer's?
Okay, so I sleep well. I mean, almost any time I can.
I think that's genetic. I think that's genetic.
Yes. So, but yeah, I mean, I have seen many people who really struggle with sleep. Disorders of sleep like insomnia, disrupted sleep cycles, or even excessive daytime sleeping, all these things can be linked to neurodegenerative diseases, it seems. And sleep is actually, what happens during the sleep is in the brain gets rest during your sleep.
Yeah.
Even if you're just sitting on a couch and looking at TV, your brain is not really getting
active.
rest. Yeah. Your entire body is sleeping, but your brain is still active. So the sleep, 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours of sleep, regular sleep at a proper time is very, very important, and it can again delay these symptoms for you. If you have sleep related issues, and if you have a history of Alzheimer's or other neurodegenerative diseases, please check them out. Please go to the doctor and discuss this particular issue that of your sleep. So sometimes it happens that we say that we are just stressed, we can't sleep, and why to go to doctor, you know? That's something that people take it for granted. But particularly if you have any history and you are having any sleep issues, then it's better to get it checked. Yeah, and there are treatments like there is bright light treatment, there are hypnosis given. So there are there are sleep hypnosis given. So which basically puts you to sleep. There are very basic ones like what I'm saying, but there are many such ways to improve your sleep and get it checked, get it corrected in time, so that you don't have these issues later when you age.
Next question. Is there a link between learning and Alzheimer's? And not just like Alzheimer's causes no learning.
Oh yeah, okay.
The other way around.
Yeah, actually this is very surprising and very shocking that lack of education, it seems, is
I read that.
Yeah, is linked to Alzheimer's. Now, lack of education, please don't misunderstand as how many degrees you have.
Or like which degree do you have.
Yeah, it is not that. But basically what education gives us is exercise to the brain. So we learn, we
form new connections.
and that is what is your exercise of the brain. So if you don't do that enough in early ages of your life, particularly before puberty is what they have searched, that might again cause to Alzheimer's, higher risk of Alzheimer's at later stage in your life. Another study which is somewhat close to this topic is the languages.
Right.
So if you are bilingual or multilingual, which many people are these days, that helps again your brain. So it's as simple as that, like in putting in layman language. If I know this is cup, and let's say that if I get Alzheimer's, I forget to say what is this. As she explained that there is a problem with the language as well in few diseases.
Right.
So I might remember this in other language. So I have many connections going to that in my brain if I'm explaining this correctly. So if one connection gets lost, I have the other connections to reach there. So this is how your brain becomes flexible. So this again improves ability of your brain, cognitive ability of your brain. And there is also a study which shows that why bilingual particularly are better people to survive with this problem is they can switch between one language to other language.
Yeah.
So it's not that you learned a language as a child and then forget about it. No. If you consistently use these languages and then you are able to switch between them.
Yeah.
So that will...
I think like to pinpoint really what bilingual means, because I don't think many people like genuinely gauge that. It's not that like, oh, I like learned Arabic for like 9 years, but now like I only got by with like worksheets, so now I don't really know much. It's not really that kind of a thing. It's more like at home we speak Marathi or we speak in Hindi sometimes, and then outside I would speak in English, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of that I'm able to genuinely comprehend and respond in this language that is helpful.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So knowing more languages, so it's a good idea, particularly because I know that most of my viewers are in the age group of 40 to 50. So it's a great idea to start learning a new language in this midlife particularly. And you can choose any language, start learning. It not just will improve the confidence, but it will also help you in battling the neurodegenerative diseases.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, this is not sponsored, but Duolingo is great.
Yeah.
I've been learning Spanish and...
Yeah, I tried my French.
You tried?
Yeah.
Honestly, it's fun. What were you asking me the other day? She was like, oh, what's a chat? And I'm like, no, it's shut. Like for a cat. And then like, now she remembers that it's not chat. So she has like 2 new connections in her brain already, right? So
yeah,
just learn in a collaborative way. I think that helps with any kind of learning really.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I think we have come to an end. There are many questions, but I think we have taken a few.
Yeah.
There are a few questions which I want to just make a mention quickly, like migraine. Is it related to this thing?
It is a brain / cardiology disorder, but it's not neurodegenerative.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
So there are many different diseases which are due to neurons, due to issues with neurons, I would say. But not everything is neurodegenerative disease. However, there are few which we discussed today in this video, and I hope that like me, you also gained a lot of knowledge, because there are many things which even I was not aware of. And if you have more questions, you can definitely put them in the comment box down below, and we'll try to answer them as much as we can. So I think that's it for today's video. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with everybody around you, because this is a knowledge that I would want to take it to as many people as possible. There are many myths, there are many misconceptions about these disorders, and most importantly, people don't go to doctors. That is my biggest issue, that people feel that mood swings are normal, personality changes are normal, being sad is normal. No,
it's stigmatized, honestly. Yeah. Especially I would speak for like our culture, like the Indian culture. It is very stigmatized. Like mental health is not like a super big thing. So just, if you are suffering in any way, you don't have to be. There are so many resources at this point. Everywhere really. Like if you're in America, Dubai, India, really everywhere. There are so many resources. Just like use it. Most of them are free.
And you can definitely manage these diseases much better with knowledge. if you know what's happening, it will be much easier. If anything is happening to a person which is close to you, which your loved one, definitely having this knowledge will help you a little bit, I feel, to handle it more efficiently. And yeah, so that's it for today, and stay healthy, and remember, even if there are neurodegenerative diseases, for being healthy and happy, age is no bar.